Inside the Plan with the 401k Brothers is a production of Horizon Retirement Plans, a division of Horizon Financial Group. Bill and Andy Bush are indeed brothers, but are not twins. Hello and welcome to Inside the Plan with the 401k Brothers. I'm Brother Bill.
And I'm Brother Andy.
Hello, Andy.
Hey, Bill.
How are you, man?
I'm really good. How about yourself?
Doing great. And so earlier today in this very office,
Yes.
Star Trek came up.
Star Trek did come up.
And what is one of the most famous sayings from Star Trek? That I think Mr. Spock says it.
Live long and prosper.
Yeah. So today we're going to be talking about those very concepts of living long and prospering, hopefully.
Yeah. I almost went with Nanu Nanu, but that was Mork and Mindy.
That was Mork and Mindy. So yeah, longevity. That's been a hot topic lately.
It has.
A lot in the headlines, and I know you've read some recent articles. You like to forward those things to me?
I do, Bill, because I think it's important that we are well studied.
Yeah, for sure. And so it's come up a lot in some of our podcasts and writings and videos and education we do to plan sponsors and their employees. And that is to really get around the concept of, hey, you want to live a long life and productive life and a prosperous life, but you don't want to outlive your money.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, I was having a conversation with a plan participant just last week about that and talking to them about how when we think into the future, we think everything's okay.
Yeah.
You know, that we have our health, we're happy, things are really positive. But the truth is, things may not be. You know, there's in Strategic Coach that Brother Pete goes to, Dan Sullivan says, hey, think of how long you might live. And you come up with an age, right?
Yeah.
And he says, how do you think you're going to feel a year before that? And everybody says, well, I think I'll be healthy and
good,
and doing fine. And I think it's very hard to visualize what aging has, what the effect of aging is on our bodies as we go forward. But this article that I sent you was a little bit about how we might underestimate our longevity.
Yeah, like people are living longer and longer and longer now. And so the averages would say I'm probably going to be around maybe a little longer than I think. So here's a stat for you. I don't think it necessarily was mentioned in that article you forwarded, but from 1960 to 2015, the life expectancy in the U.S. increased by almost 10 years.
Wow.
So it went from 69.7 to 79.4. It's projected to increase another 6.1 years from 2016 to 2060.
Yeah.
So to reach a life expectancy of 85.6.
Yeah, it's crazy. When my daughter was born in 2003, there was actually something I read that said her life expectancy is 100.
Wow. Yeah. And I know I've read before that they believe that there's a person on the earth right now that will live to be 150, which is mind-blowing.
Mind-blowing, and I don't think you or I will be around to see.
Us. I'm pretty sure it's not us.
Yeah.
But a lot goes into that.
It is.
And so the number one thing I think of is how healthy you're going to be in retirement to be able to live this long life.
Yeah, right.
And the quality of life.
And I mean, I think some of that we've talked before about the psychology of money, and Morgan Housel in that book talks about how behavior trumps knowledge, really,
right.
You know, and it's more to be how you behave is much more important than having a finance degree or the things that you exercise to actually get ahead financially. And I think that the same would be true when it comes to our physical health. If we behave well, we will probably be more healthy in retirement. Maybe not more healthy than we are now, but healthier than we would be if we made bad decisions.
Yeah, for sure. And so the article that you sent me was called "You Might Live Longer Than You Think, Your Finances Might Not." And it was from the Wall Street Journal. And it really gets into people overlooking this longevity and the fact that they could be around longer than they really would think.
Yeah. And I think part of the angle there in that article is people often overlook when they take their Social Security and making sure it's going to be around for a while. or looking at other guaranteed income sources to make sure that they have monies available to them when if they do make it to 90 or 95.
Yeah. So we've talked about Social Security being that, okay, you can't outlive that, right?
Right.
That's a check that shows up every month. Things like annuities or other guaranteed income sources, those become your baseline, right? You're sort of established to cover your needs.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's kind of like what I tell folks in retirement plans often, which is right now you're earning your dollars to pay for the food on the table, the gas in the car, the insurances, and all the other things that you need. And there's a time in the future where you will either no longer be able to work or you no longer will want to work. And you're still going to have to put food on the table and have electricity turn on when you walk in the room and have gas in the car and things like that. So you still have expenses, even though you're not earning dollars anymore. And so where are those dollars to pay for the bills coming from? And so you really have to think, well, what if I am still breathing at 85? What if I'm still breathing at 90? What might my quality of life be? And what expenses might have?
Yeah. Also, things are constantly changing in terms of the rules and regulations around RMDs. And then, of course, there is the Social Security thing to get around about when you're going to file strategically, what makes sense. A lot of folks are working older, as older Americans. And so sometimes that plays into the delayed filing of it.
Right.
That might make sense. Interesting. One of the things in the article was they mentioned this study where they talked to 65-year-olds.
Yeah.
And they said, hey, what is the chance that you will live another 10 years? And so 67% of them, about 2/3 of them said, yeah, they don't think they're going to live another 10 years. But when they came around and revisited those people 10 years later, 78% were still around. So again, that's the underestimating of how long you're going to be on the planet.
So say that again. When they were 65,
they said, hey, 2/3 of them said, I don't think I'm going to live another
10 years. Yeah. 78% of them still were.
They gave them a 2/3% chance, I guess, of living another 10 years. I probably phrased that wrong. Yeah, but 78% of them were still
actually.
Around. Yeah.
That's a bit crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that does go to that point of you have to plan as though you're still going to be on the earth. And as much as it might be easier if you knew, hey, this is the year, the day, the month I'm going to die, but that would be a lot easier to plan for. But you don't know how long you're going to live.
It's the mystery.
It is the mystery. And so for yourselves and for those that you love, you should go through some planning to plan forward as if, hey, we're going to be around.
And so one of the bases of that discussion is maybe using a longevity calculator or illustrator where the actuaries have done the math saying, hey, if you were born in this particular time, what are the chances, the probability you reach a certain age?
Yeah. And so I went in, the article refers to this longevity illustrator, and it's done by the American Society of Actuaries and some others. And
by the way, that's found at longevityillustrator.org if you want to have a look at that.
Yeah, there you go. And so you can put in your information. And if you're married, put in your spouse's information. I think it asks for your date of birth. It asks for your
general health,
where you're a smoker, male, female. And then what it does is it'll tell you what the percentage chances are that you reach certain ages. And it's very interesting. So I did that with me and my wife, and
let's call her Heather.
Let's call her, for instance. Let's call her Heather. And interestingly enough, I mean, of course, she's a little bit younger than me, but because she's a female, she has a big percentage chance to make 90 and to make 95, even pretty healthy chance of that.
Right.
And I think it kind of goes along with some of the studies we've seen JP Morgan post about in their guide to retirement. And you really do, as a married couple, you do have a better opportunity to make it to an older age just because of that, having that community about you, I guess.
Yeah. And that illustrator spits out, well, what are the chances of that one person, probability of that one person living to a certain age, the second person living to a certain age, either one of you still being around or both.
Yeah.
Of course, the both is much smaller the further you get out. So it's interesting to to take a look at those numbers. And so that is when we talk to plan participants in our 401k plans and other retirement plans, we often say, hey, make sure you use the tools that you have available, right? All the calculators and other things like that. Now, most of them, I would say, probably don't have maybe a longevity illustrator included on the website, but they all do have the retirement plan calculator tools. And one of the first questions is, how long are you going to be into retirement? Which you could also say, well, how long are you going to live for?
Right.
And so you have to put an educated number in there. And that could be based on using something like the longevity illustrator or kind of going by maybe your family lineage.
Yeah, no doubt about it. There's a book I've been reading. I'm almost done with. Actually, I'm listening to it, so I'm not reading it.
Full disclosure.
By Arthur Brooks, and it's called Strength to Strength, and it's about making that transition from kind of the prime of your career to going into where your faculties become less bright. See, I am stumbling right now.
Okay, yeah.
So maybe I'm to that point. Anyway, but it's really good because one of the things he does talk about in making it to that second curve, is what he calls it, is when it comes to living longer, is loneliness. And he says, of course, a married couple or a person with more friends is likely to live a little longer because of that social aspect and that kind of communion with someone else. And how important that is.
Yeah, that is very important because it's not just the financial piece or the physical health. It's the emotional and mental and relational space as well. And so I know our mom, I talked with her a couple of days ago. She was playing bridge with a couple of her friends who are similar age. They get together regularly and socialize and have fun. So that's awesome.
Yeah. In fact, I'm going to be taking our mom to dinner tonight, Bill. But
okay,
I'll be paying. Don't worry.
Trying to be a favorite again. I see how it is.
But I think it is important when you kind of look at longevity is to not underestimate it, because you do have to plan that your dollars need to stretch probably longer than you think.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you have certain ailments and you have certain health conditions or habits that aren't great, I'm not saying don't assume you're going to pass away earlier, but always plan that that you're still going to be around.
Yeah, and so we've had some presentations and some activities, events with Dr. Curtis Chastain, where we've presented on health and wealth, and there's a great intersection of those two things. Obviously, he's an expert on the health side of things. And so one of the things we mentioned in our book, we mentioned his program and how he talks about the importance of health is being healthy and being financially healthy. Both those folks that are successful in each one of those realms have a propensity toward planning.
Yeah.
They're planning their workouts, or they're planning to have their checkups with their doctor. They're planning their meals to make sure we're not eating bad stuff on the fly. Yeah. And the same is also true in the financial world. You're being intentional. You're controlling the things you can control. We've talked about that a lot. You're putting away dollars now for your future self, and the savings rates matter. So there is some great overlap there. And when we're talking about longevity, both of those paths collide.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I know there have been stats that show, matter of fact, I think it's in the JP Morgan deck on Guide to Retirement, that show the more income a person or a household makes, that if they're in the top 20%, that they're likely to live a little longer. And it's because they have access to more medical testing, more medical care. They also have access and ability to buy probably more whole foods and natural foods than what you might find at a grocery store of a lot of processed stuff.
The fast stuff is cheap.
Yeah,
right?
That's right.
The processed stuff, the generally unhealthy stuff, a lot of it anyways, fairly cheap.
And just being educated, they probably learn where the risks are just in daily living.
All right, good stuff, Andrew. I guess we'll about wrap it up here in the next few minutes, talking about, setting goals, not just financially, but also, the longevity calculator said it's possible I'll be around till 90 or 92. Why not set the goal further, right?
Yeah. I mean, the longevity of this podcast is longer than I expected. You see?
Yeah,
You
very
see what I
good.
did there?
I see what you did there. I liked what you did there. So, Brother Pete talks about, hey, his goal is like 103, I think.
Age 103. Yeah.
Our dad, I've talked to him several times about this. We have the almanac of the family lineage. And so his goal is to be the longest living male Bush in the Bush clan. Right now, he's number 2.
Yeah, there you go.
So he's got about 4 years to go when he becomes the oldest living.
Yeah. What's the over and under on that, Bill?
Well, you know, we haven't talked to Vegas, and they're not taking bets on it yet. But yeah, it is important to think long term, get out of the weeds. We talk about that a lot to our our employees and our participants in the plans.
Yeah, I think too. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, kind of getting out of the weeds is important, not just in the weeds of the moment to moment, but take a retreat from the normal life from time to time, and it'll help you reset your mindset.
All right, so that's a little quick discussion on longevity. We could go longer.
We could go longer,
but we're not going to.
We're not going to.
All right, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of Inside the Plan with the 401k Brothers. I'm Brother Bill.
And I'm Brother Andy.
We are brothers,
but not twins.
The opinions of the hosts and guests of this podcast are for general information purposes only and are not to be construed as specific advice or recommendations for any individual. You should consult with a qualified financial professional to determine what is appropriate for you. The advisors of Horizon Financial Group offer securities and advisory services through Cetera Advisors, member FINRA SIPC. Cetera Advisors is under separate ownership from any other named entity. Horizon Financial Group, 8280 YMCA Plaza Drive, Building 5, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, 70810. Advisors of Horizon are registered representatives of Cetera Advisors, a broker-dealer and registered investment advisor.